Ladies and gentlemen, today I have the pleasure to welcome Ms. Asli Ozdol. She is a Turkish lawyer. Ms. Asli Ozdol, thank you very much for joining me under the Human Rights Tree.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So before we start talking about Turkey and its legal system, you don't mind sharing a little bit about your background?
Sure. I'm a lawyer from Turkey, and basically I was focusing on the refugee law. I worked in the refugee law for 7 years in NGOs. Upon graduating from the school, I have been working in the civil society rather than private sector.
For the people who don't know Turkey very well, can you describe a little bit the geographic location of Turkey?
Sure. Turkey is located, it has a border to Europe from, Greece and Bulgaria.
Okay.
And from the east side, it has border to Georgia, Iran, and Syria, Iraq. And from the northern side, it has a border to Black Sea, and then in the northern part, Russia.
So where are you from in Turkey?
I'm from Edirne. It's right at the border, at the Greek border.
Okay.
It's a very small city, but I studied in Istanbul, like many other students, because it's the biggest city in Turkey, and everybody knows Istanbul.
Yeah. If I have an understanding, Istanbul is the economical capital of Turkey, and Ankara is the political capital, correct?
Yeah, we can say like that.
Okay, it's like New York and DC.
Yeah.
Okay, so before, I would like to know basically, what is the process of becoming a lawyer in Turkey?
So we have a national exam that is implemented, that is taken by all students who graduated from high school. And regarding to the score that you do in the national exam, you basically list the schools that you may enter. And if your score is eligible, you get into law school. So unlike the US, you don't conduct interviews or you don't do applications. You just match with the schools through the national exam if your score is eligible high enough to get in the university.
So at which moment did you realize you wanted to be a lawyer?
So my father is a lawyer. I guess since my childhood, seeing my father, I only wanted to become a lawyer. But at the same time, I was also interested in human rights and more interdisciplinary fields. So I think that was the reason initially becoming a lawyer. And then I found myself in the refugee law.
So did your father say, my daughter, you have to be a lawyer, or did you just watch your dad in his legal profession and get inspired? Which one was it?
I think both.
Okay.
Because I believe they also wanted me to become a lawyer, but also me going to his office. Like I was visiting like almost every week, and I think I was inspired by him.
Okay. Turkey has a country belong to which legal system?
It is belong to the civil legal system that is based on the European system. For instance, the penal code is mostly based on German and Italy, and the constitution French, or like civil law is mostly based on Swiss law, Switzerland's law. So we are belong to the system that is a civil legal system, like in Europe, most of the European countries.
But through history, I know that Turkey has a republic come from the Ottoman Empire. Yeah. So and if I'm not mistaken, the Ottoman Empire was based on Islamic law. Do
Yeah.
you have in some kind of way a residue of Islamic law in your constitution?
No, we don't. I mean, there are some old property laws, but
Okay.
I wouldn't say Islamic. But in 1920s, after the founding of Turkish Republic, I think in the mid 1920s, Turkey accepted the European law, which replaced the Ottoman Sharia courts and Sharia law.
Okay.
So when it was founded, yeah, for a short time period, they didn't change, but in the mid 20s, they already accepted the European law. So I would say our constitution or our law doesn't have any Islamic Sharia law implementation.
As a woman living in Turkey, do you feel like have the belief or feel that is easy for women to choose and practice the legal profession in Turkey?
It's getting women are more involved day by day in the legal practicing and being lawyer. But I would say it's not a easy route because discrimination is an ongoing thing, and there is no gender equality. And like other parts of the world, women needs to work harder to be where men are placed, because in the eye of the society, if you're a man, you're easily tackled with difficult situations, but women cannot. There's such perception in the societies, unfortunately. But women are, they are fighters. They are making their voices heard day by day, like more often. So I would say it's increasing, it's challenging, but despite the challenges, women, they're like choosing their paths that they want to follow. But day by day, it is increasing. There are more female lawyers in the field. Honestly, I want to tell you a very short story.
Go ahead.
When I was providing counseling to my clients, I usually get Mr. Attorney as a reflection, even though I'm standing in front of them and giving, legal information. They call me Mr. Attorney. I think that shows the perception of the people, right?
So, in my understanding, there is challenges out there, but many Turkish women are, through hard work, through dedication, are joining the legal system in some way. Can you share a little bit about the percentage you believe? For instance, in 10 men, how many women lawyers you can have in Turkey?
I really don't know the percentage, but I would say, especially within the lawyers, I think it's getting like maybe 40-60 or 50-50 between the lawyers. I think the female lawyers are reaching out there. It's not significantly low.
Yeah, based on your story, how do you react when somebody say Mr. Lawyer? So do you kind of keep advising, or you have to kind of pause and correct the situation before you move on? What is the personal reaction?
In the beginning, I was surprised, and I thought, because this happened not only with one person, it happened multiple times. And at first, because of the surprise, I didn't say anything in the beginning. But later on, because it keeps going, they call me Mr. Attorney, and I pause and I just correct, and then I continue, because otherwise, if we don't correct that, it will continue like that forever.
But that thing come from your male client or for both genders?
Both genders.
Oh, okay. I say this is interesting.
Yeah,
So let's dive on the Turkish constitution. Would you mind kind of describe me a little bit about the Turkish constitution when it comes to the separation of powers?
sure.
Mm.
So Turkish constitution recognizes the separation of powers. It is based on the separation of powers.
Mm.
Like in all separation of powers, we have legislative branch, judicial branch, and executive branch. And that I would say that it is changing over the time. We had like a long constitutional history that involving military interventions and
yeah, to that, can you give us a little briefing on the historical constitution of Turkey?
okay.
In certain years, when did it change, and those changes, why it happened?
So it started in 1921. We had 1921 constitution that lasted for 3 years, 1924 constitution. In these two constitutions, the separation of power was not described by the founding government. In 1961, it was described, and it was Turkey has a civil system, it has parliamentary system as well, and all these 1982, the constitution changed again, but all these changes in 1960s and 1980s, it was after the coup d'etat. We had two coup d'etats in 1960 and in 1980, and after both of them, like they voted for new constitutions. There are some details like differences of the voting of the constitutional changes in 1961 from 1980s, but it's still after the coup d'etat. And our constitution is still based on 1982 constitution, but it has been changed drastically. There are like major changes in 2007, then 2010, and then in 2017, Turkey did this referendum on constitutional changes that basically changed the Turkish system from parliamentary system to presidential system. And since then, we have been implementing these changes. And actually, we are going to have an election in the upcoming May. So,
oh, wow. So basically, my understanding is there is a separation of power between the in the constitution. There is the executive branch, legislative, and judicial branch. When it comes to the executive branch, can you tell us who is in charge?
Excuse me,
when it come to the executive branch, can you describe who is the head of the government?
Okay.
And
yeah, honestly, with the changes in 2017, it is quite similar to the US system.
okay.
So the president before 2017, the president's duties are more symbolic. Okay. And after these changes, the president become the head of the government and at the same time head of the state. And but there are like some changes, I believe, that go beyond the US system. That is about the checks and balances system. So there are some methods that legislative branch can check the actions of the executive branch. And one of the methods was to ask questions. Before, Parliament could ask directly questions to the Ministry of Councils, but right now they can, for instance, ask questions to president's consultants. So there is no direct communication. That is a problem.
Okay.
Also, like yeah, but in general, it's similar to the executive branch here. They can president can enact executive decisions in terms of the executive um, um, authority. But as you also know, as a lawyer, some of the executive authorities can go beyond their authority, and then there should be a strong check and balances system in order to keep the presidential system as democratic as it is.
Yeah, so basically I have the belief that sometimes politicians have the tendency to interpret the law on their own views. So in Turkey, how many terms a president have, and how the president is elected?
So until the changes in 2007, it was 7 years. Right now, it is 5 years, and it is elected by the referendums, like public referendums. And it is elected for 5-year term, and president can conduct 2 terms at most.
So before the referendum of the constitution, it was 7 years, but after the referendum, the president is elected for 2 terms, but each term is 5 years. But my impression is your actual president have been in power for more than 10 years. What justified that?
Yeah, he is in power for 20 years. In 2002 or 3, he was elected, but he was elected for not as president.
Okay.
He was in the majority party. He became the head of minister, prime minister. Thank you very much. Yeah. And then he was elected for the first. He says that for the first time in 2017, because in 2018, because with the changes, there is new constitution and new system. So even though his candidacy is debatable, because it's going to be the 3rd time, they suggest that they argued that it is the first time. It was the first time elected in the new system in 2018. Now it's the 2nd time.
So when he was in power, when he came in power, it was a parliamentary regime. Is it? And after that, there was a referendum to a presidential regime. So I'm asking what is the process for a referendum to change the constitution? What do you need to change the constitution in Turkey?
Well, before when it was parliamentary regime, it was difficult. It asked for more than the majority. I think it was 2/3 in order to change the constitution. But with the referendum, they basically asked people the question yes or no. And as far as I remember, it was 51% or 52% yes against 48 or 49% no. So that was problematic because constitution involves civil rights, or it is the frame of the country, and changing it with such a small difference, I think is problematic, because you shouldn't be ignoring, or you cannot ignore, the 49% of your country. And so in the last referendum, basically people voted yes or no for the constitutional changes. And besides that, the media also completely show the majority party that has the majority, or that has the AKP, Erdogan's party, more than the other parties who supported no. So it became like a political issue rather than our constitution. It's also legal. I don't call it purely legal, but rather than people paying attention what was changing, what was not changing, they just became fanatically supportive to their parties, and they voted yes or no accordingly. I don't think that it was well understood by the people back then.
So there is really a tangle between political and legal, and it make it more, there is no such as a separation of legal and politics. Is everything is mixed, and everybody is trying to gain power in any mean. How is the legislative? Is it like the US with two chambers, or is only one parliamentary chamber?
It has only one parliamentary chamber, so it's not like US. We don't
Okay.
have House or Senate. We have just one parliament.
Okay.
That's also before it was 50 senators, 55, 50, 550, sorry, what am I doing? 550 senators. Now I guess it's 600 senators. It's a big parliament.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have one.
So how is the judicial system? What is the highest court in Turkey?
Under the constitution, there are 4 highest courts. And basically, one court is dealing with the civil and criminal cases as the final decision maker. Okay. And one is dealing with the administrative cases. And there's constitutional court. And there's also a court that is dispute that tries to solve the disputes between the decisions of the high courts.
Okay, so each court have how many judges?
Well, Constitutional Court has 15 judges. It started to so the first judges appointed in 2012 for 12 years, and Court of Cassation. I think they have their branches as well within themselves. And the administrative court has 12 judges that are also appointed majorly by majorly by the president. And
so the judges are not elected, but they are appointed by the president?
The majority of them, yes. So the Constitutional Court has 15 judges. Like approximately 12 of them are appointed directly by the president. Some of them are nominated. So he appoints from among the nominated candidates by the, for instance, High Council of the Education appoints 3 of them, like president who selects and appoints them among the nominated candidates, or he can also appoint by itself.
So if the, for instance, the Constitutional Court, if the president nominate judges, do they go through the parliament to be approved, or no? They only need to be nominated by the president?
Only nominated by the president. Parliament also nominates a part of it, I guess 3 or 4 of them, and the majority is nominated by the president.
Okay, if somebody have for instance, human rights issues dealing with the state or organization, and they go to those courts, is it their decision, is it final, or they can further go to the European Court?
It is final for domestic perspective, from domestic perspective, but Turkey accepted European Human Rights Court's authority jurisdiction into 1987. So people can also bring the cases to European Human Rights Court. And if actually European Human Rights, like Turkey has the majority of the cases, but European Human Rights Court has the majority of cases from Turkey that are pending. So you can guess how much burden that we create on the judges.
So what kind of, can you cite example of type of cases Turkey have pending in the European Human Rights Court, for instance?
It is like changes very full of variety. So one of them could be freedom of expressions. There is a huge pressure on the media. There are cases from older cases from 1990s, like 2000, before it was like freedom of life, because we had conflicts back then and forced disappearances as well. And there are also cases like freedom of liberties, and most of the cases regarding to that. And yeah, I would say freedom of speech and right to life and freedom of liberties.
So in which way you can describe, for instance, specific case when it comes to right to life? Is it related to women's rights or other issues?
It could be. For instance, European Human Rights Court can decide that there is a violation, even though the state doesn't do actively put an action. If it doesn't investigate as it should be, the state can also be condemned, right? So, for instance, one of the cases that included right to life, not investigating effectively, and one of the famous cases, it's still ongoing after the decision of European Human Rights Court, is assassination of Hrant Dink, who was an Armenian intellectual, also journalist, and started to receive threats because of his articles on the journal. And he applied to government saying that, look, I need protection, I'm receiving these threats. And then he was assassinated in Istanbul. So one of the cases was related to that. It can be, it can be also related to women's rights. It can be like, right to life cases that was basically affected the minority rights, maybe. Yeah, it can be various.
Wait, following Turkey, I have the impression that the country is often in the move between two worlds, and I understand it because of the geographic location. There is one part of the population that wanna move to more Occidental values, and there is also one part that are into Islamic values. How the country are able to create a balance on embracing both values in their positive ways?
I guess through the democracy, right? That's why we have these systems. So there should be a platform which will be parliament, hopefully, in this elections, that will basically have all the voices from the country. That is to say, it could be like secular voices, it could be conservative voices, it could be minority voices. I think that should be provided or make it existent through the democracy.
And through that thing, I feel like require a real separation of power between the institutions. Do you believe there is a hope that that thing happen soon, or do you think it will take time for the population to politically mature and for the leaders to embrace a free society? Do you think that thing will take time, or you think the Turkish population is ready to kind of embrace those values?
Well, thinking that our changes in our constitution, I think Turkish population is ready for many changes because it has been ongoing for like long time, and I believe like people want to, according to these surveys, you know, I'm trying to follow up with this um, uh, surveys that are conducted, like asking questions, for instance, do you believe in justice in Turkey? Is it being conducted? I think the main thing that should happen is to um, strengthen the state's entities and make them reliable. Maybe changing them would be harder so that these entities can be relied on. If each government changes make changes according to their agenda, then people's sense of justice, feel of justice, will be hurt as well. So I think, yeah, with there is hope that I believe that these institutions will be strengthened, and it's gonna be in a democratic way. And I think that it's necessary to have the consensus in the society that the justice is working.
Yeah, I truly believe that Turkey is a great country historically, and is also a beautiful country uh, through, you know, what I see, and the country deserves better. And if there is a strong institution and a real separation of power, I think there is a hope for a democratic society. The other question I want to ask is, how powerful is the civil society in Turkey?
I would say they are they are powerful, but I don't think that they are included as they should be in terms of the legislative process, and or they are listened as they should be. So there's a civil society. There are a lot of organizations that are also well rooted, that are also very historical, but the inclusion of those civil societals and organizations are not sufficient,
Okay.
which also I believe should be counted as checks and balances system. So separation of power plus the fourth, let's say, fourth leg of a table is the civil society and freedom of speech part.
So do you kind of have a view or idea on how in Turkey the government and the population can empower the civil society, so the civil society can be more involved?
Well, it's going the opposite way, honestly, because in the recent years they made changes and also laws regarding to appointing basically an auditor to NGOs, or there are like some changes that are in adverse to the civil society. Also, they recently made changes that allows the government, if there's like, I don't know, some actions, terror actions, they may say, they can just take over the um, properties or the duties, or they just close it. So it started to become heavily depending on these governmental agencies. So I would say that I don't think that it is increasing, but I think their voices, that their inclusion is um, decreasing and being adversely affected by these changes.
So you believe that they are not in the right direction right now? It means they are facing a lot of challenges when it comes to you know, providing a balance in the society.
Also, maybe you heard like there were many areas, including backlashes against the human rights defenders in Turkey. Many of them were jailed. There are still a lot of human rights defenders are in jail. So yeah, there's a backlash. There are laws being enacted against the civil society. So I think I see it in a dangerous way. Hopefully, it will change soon.
Can you share a name of the human rights activist who?
Yeah, one of them is Osman Kavala. I think it was everywhere, still everywhere. There is an international community supporting Osman Kavala as well. So we hear his name, but there are many of them. So hopefully it will change.
Yeah. Miss Asli, again, thank you very much for your precious time. Thank you for joining me on the Human Rights Tree. I hope we have also in the near future have opportunity to discuss other human rights issues. I know that Turkey have a great heart and indeed welcome many refugees in your country after the Syrian war. And I would love to discuss about that, but for your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me again. It was very nice to seeing you, and I'm happy to be here. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon.